Welcome back, my friends, as we continue on our Infiniteam journey in hyperroll with Artark. Let's just start with the graphic. Like, comment, subscribe, do the things, because there's an algorithm and you can help it, and that gets the video out and does stuff, and yeah, you get it. Okay, so yeah, we're doing more Infiniteam just because it's a really strong build. Lots of different ways to go with it, but you really want to find ways to work with it. And my goal is to show you a bunch of different ways to get it to work for you. Let's get into the augments. And it is really hard to pass on Raider spoils. You're going to be getting an artifact every single round. If you set yourself up well, it can work really well. Now, of course, you can end up with some things that just don't fit the champion that they're on, but overall, throughout the course of a game, it's likely going to be worth it. And we are very quickly looking into a mirror, although I strongly suspect that this person's augment involves magic resist on their Pantheon because my Lucian just does not get through in time, and that leads them to be able to beat us. Now, one of the things that guided me in this particular match was that I got a Kai'Sa right out of the NPC round, so that is a really good quick draw, and so I wanted to head in this direction. It's important with Infiniteam to get the portals out as early as possible. I couldn't do it in our first round because of the Ezreal augment, unless I decided to just give up on it, but notice once they come out, we're able to win. Item choice time, spatula, easy choice because I also have a sword. That will allow me to get to the 7 Infiniteam. There is a drawback to it, especially with this build, that we'll go over a little tiny bit later. And as I mentioned, you're playing a little RNG with this particular Ezreal augment. I end up with a Black Cleaver on Lucian, which just is not an optimal item for him. Since his ult is AP damage, it's just not going to take full advantage of what the Black Cleaver does. It's time for our next set of augments, and New Recruit is going to solve the problem that I was talking about earlier, which is that to do the full 7 Infiniteam and 4 Quickdraw, you're going to be leaving your front line with just Pantheon and Shen, which is too weak. So you're gonna end up giving up one of the Quickdraw, but with an extra team member, now that's not a problem at all. Now, if I get a chance to put an Infiniteam symbol on Kai'Sa, I love doing that because she is a really, really strong unit who's going to ramp attack speed as she goes, since that's part of her ult. It's time for our carousel egg to hatch and see what we get. It does give us a sword that we can use to put a Hextech Gunblade on Kai'Sa, which is great because, again, she's going to ramp attack speed, which means she's going to be ramping healing throughout the entire fight. Then it is item choice time, and there's another spatula, and part of me wishes I had just held on at that point to get an additional spatula, because I would now have 2 additional team members, but instead it does give me the static shiv for Kai'Sa. Again, excellent item. She's going to shred magic resist, and in general the quick draw build is going to be doing mostly AP magic damage, so having a static shiv is very important. I've moved Ezreal over next to Sivir because Kai'Sa already has all 3 item slots, so she wouldn't be getting the additional item. Luckily, he gives her a Black Cleaver, which does work really well for Sivir. For an additional frontliner, we switched from a Rammus to a Garen, and that is because it ticks Defender for Shen, which is going to give the entire team a little bit more armor, and the Defenders double that amount, which will just make our frontline a little tankier so our backline can get things done. And we're up to our final augment, which is just going to rub some salt in the wound, because I could have had 2 extra team members and an Infiniteam crest. But instead, we'll go with Jeweled Lotus, because again, Quick Draw is AP. So having the Jeweled Lotus will give more AP. Now, I tried to pick up the Negatron Cloak. The bench was full, so I put a Negatron Cloak on Pantheon, thinking I would get it immediately, but no such luck, and I don't think this is one of those planned glitches that's part of the glitched out set. Now, since Miss Fortune can have such a huge impact, I decide to bring her in, which sacrifices the 5 Infiniteam just for a couple of rounds. And you can see, yeah, good call. Luckily, Ezreal gave her the Mana Zane, so she's able to ult all over the place. And what I find most entertaining in this particular fight isn't essentially how it goes, but with all of these champions doing all of this damage, Rammus leads the damage charts. Now we have some item choices to make, but there's an interesting problem coming down the line. I'm not going to be able to hold on to the front line as is, which is why I picked up a frontline item, because I'm going to want the remaining champions to be tankier. But when presented with a Mana Zane, I can't resist putting that on Miss Fortune, even though she already has a blue buff. But what I was saying earlier is that in order to get the 7 Infiniteam and 4 Quickdraw, I'm gonna have to lose either Garen or Rammus. One of them will have to go. Because at this moment, I only have 1 slot left, and I need 2 more Infiniteam members on it, which will be Twisted Fate and Ezreal. And they're going to be key to pulling this thing out. But as you can see, Gary was with me on this journey. Just all the right champions, all the right augments at all the right times. And this team just cleaned house all the way into the top 4. For our final 2 items, we are thinking Frontline and Ezreal. I already put the last Whisperer that I had onto Ezreal. We'll go ahead and grab the Gargoyle Stone Plate just to tank up Pantheon a little bit more, and then grab the Giant Slayer for Ezreal. If and when we get him up to 2 stars, he's going to end up over on the portal. But for now, at 1 star, we're going to stay with Kai'Sa. At the moment, we're also sticking with our 6 Infiniteam and our stronger frontline. And that's because we'd rather hold things back than necessarily end up with the stronger doubles. We might test it out after this round, depending how it all goes. Miss Fortune ends up with a Zhonya's, which can be really, really useful, but with how much she casts and how quickly, because of that Mana Zane, we don't even get a chance to test it. And just like that, it is a 1v1 against Tony the Tiger, and I ultimately decide, you know what, I'm going to take Rammus out, because I could 2-star a second Rammus, load up Garen, and go to the 7 Infiniteam. I can switch back if I need to at this point, but I at least give myself the option to see if the 7 Infiniteam will hold up. I love having the 2 stronger Kai'Sas out there. That is a lot of damage, but the reality is the damage is really coming from the other side of the board, because Miss Fortune with that Mana Zane is just going to crush things, and your Death's Defiance is not going to save you, Twisted Fate. At the end of that round, Gary gifts us with a 2-star Ezreal, who will now take his proper place on the portal to be duplicated. Now, this is a super team we are up against, but one thing about Super's team is they're generally inherently just a little bit squishy, because your champions that get you there are 1s, 2s, and 3s, so if you have enough damage, you're gonna get through them quickly, and it's GG for everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video and you are enjoying the general Infiniteam builds. We will get back to others, I promise, but until then, have an absolutely awesome day.